Here in London's fashionable Bloomsbury is a newly built townhouse that faces a tree-lined square. It is the home of Henry and Juliette Laxton. Henry Laxton could not be described as handsome. He had, though, an engaging face with undistinguished features made attractive by the fact that he was a rich banker who had the good fortune to be married to a beautiful woman. This morning he was to be found in his study. A letter from Charles Cordell had just been delivered. He read with increasing alarm that a boy called Jan Margoza was due at the Boar Inn, Fleet Street, at 3 o'clock that very afternoon, giving him no time to prepare for his arrival. He rang the bell and his valet entered. "Is my wife still in her boudoir?"
"I believe so, sir."
"And does she have any visitors with her?"
"One, sir, Lady Faulkner."
Henry Laxton smiled inwardly. He knew how bored his wife would be. Juliette Laxton was the younger sister of Isabelle Gautier, who had married the Marquis de Villeduval. Their father, a widower, was a wealthy bourgeois businessman, and the marriage was seen as beneficial to both sides. The Villeduvals would have an injection of much-needed money, and Monsieur Gautier could claim an aristocrat as a son-in-law. Only Juliette had had any idea of the depths of Isabelle's misery, married to a much older man who cared only for himself. Then Isabelle was killed in an accident when a coach was overturned. The only survivor was 3-year-old Sido, whose leg had been badly broken. After his wife's death, the Marquis did something out of character. Isabelle was not buried in the family vault in Normandy. Instead, she was placed in a simple grave, and the headstone merely recorded her name, without title, inscription, or date. The only rational explanation for the Marquis's strange behaviour was surely grief, for it had turned out a double tragedy. His half-brother Armand went missing, and all attempts to find him failed. Juliette had never got over the loss of her beloved sister. Her only consolation had been the hope that she might be allowed to bring up Isabelle's daughter, Sido. But it was not to be. For reasons Juliette had never understood, Sido's father, the Marquis, had wanted nothing more to do with the Gautier family. For Juliette, it had been a double bereavement. Not only had she lost her sister and her closest friend, but shortly after this, she had had a miscarriage, and been told that there was little hope of her conceiving again. It had been her greatest sadness, for she had always imagined herself surrounded by a large and noisy family. She sat now in front of her dressing-table mirror, wishing her visitor would leave. Not for the first time, Lady Faulkner was giving Juliette the benefit of her advice.
"My formula for looking perpetually young is to avoid laughter and excessive use of the facial muscles. Only by such a means can one hold back time's cruel hand."
She was interrupted by a knock at the door. Juliette's face lit up with a charming smile when she saw her husband, while Lady Faulkner's remained mask-like and rigid. "I trust your family is well," said Henry Laxton with a bow.
"Quite well,"
replied Lady Faulkner stiffly. "And does your son still spend all his time at the theatre, sporting with pretty actresses?" The question was designed to speed the guest's departure. Lady Faulkner's lips longed to purse themselves together in disgust, but lines must be avoided at all costs.
"I have no idea what you mean, Mr. Laxton," she said, standing up and waving her fan vigorously. "Jack is at Oxford, where he is studying diligently. And now I must leave you. I have other calls to make, where I will, I know, be very welcome." And with great indignation she swept out of the room. The Laxtons waited until they heard the front door being closed, then both burst out laughing. "She seems more absurd every time I see her," said Henry Laxton. "Jack hasn't been near Oxford all term, from what I can gather."
Juliette sighed. "Oh, mon chéri, please remind me to laugh and smile and to use every muscle my face might possess, lest I end up looking as sour and miserable as that woman." "That would be an impossibility. Now, On a more serious note, I have had a letter this morning from Charles Cordell, and I have news that will hearten you. It relates to Cido de Villeduval.
To Cido? What is it?
Asked Juliet urgently. Tonight, you will meet someone who spoke to her only a few days ago.
You're talking in riddles. Who is it?
Cordell has asked if we would be willing to take in a boy for a few months. He's 14 years old, an orphan, brought up by a contact of Cordell's man in Paris, a man called Tetu.
But what has this boy to do with Cido?
Aha! Said Laxton. I am coming to that. Tetu and the boy are travelling entertainers.
Travelling entertainers? What strange company Monsieur Cordell keeps,
Juliet exclaimed. And a couple of days ago they were invited, with a magician called Topolan, to perform the bullet trick for which he was famous at a party the Marquis was giving. Count Kaliowski fired the pistol, and he shot the magician dead.
But why?
Why indeed? Tetu is certain that it was because both he and Topolan knew something about Kaliowski's past. Tetu is now terrified that the Count will come after him and the boy.
And this boy met Cido?
Oh, yes. And evidently she helped them escape.
And what is the boy called?
Jan Margoza. He hasn't had many advantages in life. Maybe we can help him, give him some education. There's no reason he cannot live on equal terms with us and learn to be a gentleman. Juliet's face lit up with excitement.
This boy met Cido? He will live with us as part of the family.
Henry Laxton came over and kissed the nape of his wife's very white neck.